Mating Matters, the podcast that looks at human behavior through a very sexy lens. I'm Dr. Wendy Walsh. Let's face it, we're wired to reproduce. So powerful is this instinct that it has secretly embedded itself in nearly every human behavior. Mating Matters podcast helps you understand yourself a little better. Human mating strategy plays out everywhere. Mating Matters. Listen and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, on the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
In this room sits a remarkable woman. She is Miss Helen Keller. She does not see the room or the book that she is reading. She sees nothing. She does not hear the rustling of the curtains behind her. She hears nothing. She is deaf and blind. But if you enter her room, she will know it. Your lightest footfall will tell her you are coming.
It's an interview with Helen Keller from 1930. Pretty crazy to even think there ever was an interview with Helen Keller, somebody who is both blind and deaf. And this week on the News Junkie Interviews, we'll tackle one of those big questions. What is it like to be blind? And we're going to interview somebody by the name of Dan Barra-Berger. I think that's how you say his name. I screwed it up, but he corrects me because it's a bit hard to pronounce. And we're going to talk to him about every facet of life, how things are different, what it's like to go online, what it's like to do what he does, which is travel the world when you're blind. It's an amazing, amazing interview, and it's so interesting to get to know all these different things and struggles that people deal with when they can't see, like most of the rest of us can. This week, the News Junkie Interviews is brought to you by Secret Shows, uncensored shows. You can catch C-Lane, myself, Joshua Pinkman Fowler, and a cast of friends as we cruise through uncensored shows every single week. Audio and video available. And if you want to support this show, go over to GetSecretShows.com. Thank you so much for all the positive feedback. It is much, much appreciated. And you can email tips@thenewsjunkie.com with any comments, questions, suggestions for interviews, or anything like that. So let's tackle the question this week. What is it like to be blind?
On this episode of the News Junkie Interviews.
It's a whole different life. I mean, to be blind, everything you do changes. We started out with Helen Keller because that's an amazing example of somebody who persevered through it all. Helen Keller was born and she had vision and hearing when she was a child until she was about a year old. Then she got a fever and she lost her vision and lost her hearing, leaving her obviously deaf and blind. But Helen Keller didn't just sit around and do nothing and learn nothing and sort of sit there almost in a vegetative state for the rest of her life. No. She learned things. She was the first deaf and blind person to graduate from college. She fought for women's rights and all sorts of other issues that she really thought were important, especially people who were disabled by either being blind or deaf. For 40 plus years, she fought and spoke for these people. And yes, despite the fact that she was blind and deaf, she could speak.
It is an unnatural voice, and it is her great sorrow. For all her years of effort, Helen has never learned to speak clearly. This isn't strange, for since she was a baby, she has not heard a word spoken, nor seen lips forming one. But let Helen, with Polly's help, tell you.
It is not blindness or deafness that brings me my darkest hours.
It is not blindness or deafness that bring me my darkest hours.
It is the acute disappointment in not being able to speak normally.
It is the acute disappointment in not being able to speak normally.
I know it's tempting to giggle at something like that, but how amazing is that? Let's go through a silly, stupid exercise, okay? Not if you're driving, if you're operating heavy machinery, this is not the time for you. But the rest of us who have a second, just try this. Just walk with me down this corny road for just a moment. Now close your eyes until all you see is just darkness, just complete black with your eyelids firmly closed. Now that is a basic version of the sensation of being completely blind. Now, if you move your arms around, you'll find that for a moment or two, you can handle it. You know where your arms are. You know the spatial awareness, even without being able to see. But the longer you do that, the more you lose control out of that. The more you lose control of your arms and they start hitting you, or mine are hitting the microphone. I'm even finding it hard to concentrate right now because I'm trying to do both at the same time. That's just with your eyes taken away from you. Now imagine your hearing is taken away too. And imagine that you can neither see nor hear anything. You live in this world of darkness and silence. And yet you become somebody who is an intellectual, somebody who learns to speak, somebody who learns to communicate, somebody who gets through life when they have so many more problems than we do. That's pretty crazy. And that's why we have the question this week, what's it like to be blind? Let's take it to the streets with another round of Coleman's questions to see how you feel about senses. If you had to give up one of your senses, whether it be sight, whether it be smelling, sense of touch, what would it be? What are the ones you take to heart and love the most? And then what kind of question would you ask a blind person? Those among the questions Coleman hit the streets with this week.
If you had to give up one of your 5 senses, what would it be?
Smell.
Smell. I've gotten that one a few times.
Be my nose.
Smell.
Smell.
To give up one of them, I would say hearing, because I can't hear that well anyhow, and I read lips a lot, so...
What is the most important sense to you?
Sound. The reason is I love like atmospheric kind of doom metal orchestra, kind of large grand scheme opera kind of things. So if I lost that, it would be a really shitty thing because I audiophile, that kind of thing.
If you could ask a blind person one question, what would that question be?
Basically, I would ask what it's like when you're physically touching someone's face. Do you actually visualize it in their head? And like how things are actually in their version of sight. That's what I would like to know. How they see the world rather than how we see the world.
What is the most important sense to you?
Touch.
And thirdly, if you could ask a blind person one question, what would you ask?
How long you been blind?
I see what you did there. What is the most important sense to you?
Sight. I'm a materialistic person, so if I can't see the things that bring me joy, then damn it all.
I can't believe that there are people who fight through these things that some of us would deem just catastrophic. If you ask me, hey, would you want to be born and live a life again if you were going to be blind and deaf through it all? I just being honest here, I don't know that I would be able to answer yes to that. So let's go into the world of people who are blind, who deal with sight issues. And let's get into our interview this week with Dan Barra-Berger, who perseveres despite everything he's gone through. Let me make sure I'm not butchering your name, first of all. Dan Barra-Berger, is it as easy as it seems?
That's as close for an Anglo, yeah. It's technically Barra-Berger, but I don't expect anyone to. It's like the most French name in history.
I'm gonna try anyways. Dan Barra-Berger.
Close. We'll call it close enough.
All
right. Barra-Berger.
And
yeah.
so
But
now
I do go by Barra-Berger. That's just way easier.
You're just used to it by now.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to start with a couple of simple things. Now I know there's some people who are in the blind community, if I could say that, who take issue with the word blind and this like not sighted or like what do you use when it comes down to that? Does any of that stuff bother you?
Personally, I'm not too picky on the whole nomenclature, the whole thing. Like I am blind, but people immediately when they think blind, they think it's just totally no vision, but I have some workable vision, so I then have to. It's more other people I have to adapt to. So I am legally blind. A lot of people don't like visually impaired. That's kind of getting a little, I guess, passé or whatever.
Yeah.
But legally blind. I think the only thing people in the blind community do kind of take truck with is like calling us as a whole, the blind.
All right. Yeah.
There are still some organizations that are like the Foundation for the Blind,
Like
and
like
so that's
some
archaic.
giant monolithic group where you guys are all the same and you operate together and you're just in that huddle as the blind.
Exactly. Yeah, it sounds like an old like The Thing or The Blob. Here come the blind. We're gonna get you.
So you weren't born without vision. You this happened to you over time. Can you explain? Can you walk us through that?
Absolutely, yeah. When I was I did have I'm very, very nearsighted. So I was born with just poor vision. I've got astigmatism, but I was able to, with super thick glasses, I was able to see. When I was 7 years old, a friend of mine accidentally kicked me in the back of the head. It was just a playground accident. I was just sitting there, and he was running by, and he kind of tripped and hit me in the back of the head, and so I had a detached retina from there. And it was kind of bad news. I was so young, I didn't know to tell my parents something was up.
Really?
Because, you see in cartoons, when like Bugs Bunny or whoever gets hit in the head, they see stars or birds or whatever. Well, I was seeing these little flashes in front of my vision, and I thought, oh, well, that's what that is. So I just thought, it always goes away for the cartoon, so it must go away for me. Turns out it didn't. I had 2 surgeries to try to repair the retina. And the retina is kind of like flypaper. Once it sticks to itself, it's you're not pulling it back apart, kind of like duct tape. It's like, forget it, just throw it out and start fresh. And so mine had just kind of folded over after the incident, and it stuck together. So I've got 0 vision in my left eye. But I was able to later in life drive, and I went to school, did a bunch of traveling and all this when I was fully sighted. So, well, as fully sighted as I've ever been with the one eye, but I was able to drive. And then in 2008, at the end of the 2008, I was working at a record store in a city kind of near Niagara Falls, Ontario, and the vision of my right eye just started to fade. Kind of like, in the start of a James Bond movie when he turns to the camera and pulls the trigger and, blood comes down. It was kind of like that. So for a half second, I'm like, cool. It's like GoldenEye on the N64. And then afterward, I'm like, oh, that's probably not good. So then, I went to the hospital, and they said, well, your retina is detaching right now. And this one was weird because there was no physical incidents. Not like I went to the bar and got, lit up and fell down some stairs or something. There was just, it's just how it went. And so I had 3 surgeries over the course of about 2.5 years. And so the vision in my right eye, the best I've been able to describe it is, I hope you didn't want a short version of this whole thing.
No. I'm very interested.
Aces. All right. So it's basically like after you have a shower and the mirror in your bathroom there is all foggy.
Yeah.
It's kind of like looking into that mirror and it's all foggy, but now take your hand and kind of streak your hand on the outside of the mirror so it's a little clearer, and then take a bar of soap and just kind of streak it through the center of the mirror, and that's where the damage from my surgeries is, like the scar tissue. So if you're trying to look at yourself in this mirror, now there's a kind of streaky blur right through the center. It's a little clearer on the outside, and otherwise it's all just super foggy. And then to see with any level of clarity, you got to get your nose right up to the mirror.
Yeah.
So cross all that with TV static, and that's as close as I've been able to describe what I see out of one eye.
Wow. So at either time, just because I know somebody myself who their retina was detaching, and I remember the whole process they went through. At either time when you were 10 or when you were older, when you had this problem going on, did they make you do that thing where you have to like lie down for a week and you can't move? Did you have to do that as a 10-year-old? Because I can't even imagine how difficult that would have been.
Oh no, I was pretty rangy. I was 7, but it was. I think they tried to get me to do that, and I honestly, I think there's a lot that I must have blocked from that time, but I don't remember doing it. But definitely when I was 27, and the vision in the right eye was going, I was well, I had a patch over that eye, over my right eye, and the reason they make you lay down is so it sounds like you have a bit of background in it, but so the retina can kind of try to reattach. Usually they put a gas bubble or an oil bubble into the eye. It's kind of like a lava lamp, and just something floats up to the top and it holds it in place. So wherever the damage is, the oil bubble or the gas bubble just holds the damaged spot in place. So that was just a little over 10 years ago now, and it was was I 27? No, I was 25. Doesn't matter. And it was about 10 years ago. And so for about 6 months, I was essentially totally blind because I had a patch over my eye, and I was laying down trying to keep it in place. And it wasn't fun. I still slouch like it's my job. So
yeah, I mean, I got to imagine. First of all, your eyes seem to hate you because you've got all this stuff going on. But yeah, I got to imagine.
I hate them back. So.
Yeah, I got to imagine that after the second round of this, did you was there a battle with depression, or did you get really, really frustrated at sort of your luck with your vision?
Oh, absolutely. It was. Yeah, and that's something, I mean, you kind of assume right off the bat, and it's something that not a lot of people talk about, is the mental health aspect of disability, and it's huge. And so yeah, I definitely went through pretty rough bout of depression there, and the worst thing was I didn't even realize I had it, to be dead honest. I thought I'm just angry with the situation, but you don't really at this point equate it with being depressed, because you're still just trying to, well, how am I going to make money? You're just trying to get through your day to day. You don't really have in your mind, you don't really have the luxury of considering your mental health, which in retrospect, I wish I took that time to say, all right, I need to figure out what's up here. Cause yeah, it was, I was a grumpy goat, to put it absolutely lightly.
Well, I mean, look, that's incredibly difficult for somebody, especially somebody young, to go through that. I remember when I was younger, I was a mobile DJ for a while, like birthday parties and weddings and stuff. And the guy who was my boss was legally blind, and sort of a similar situation to what you're in. And I remember it was interesting to watch him and how he was able to adapt to all kinds of stuff. But he had a neighbor, and the neighbor kid was maybe 9 years old or something, and was playing with some friends and ended up getting, of all things, a dart in the eye, and lost his vision in one of his eyes. And this DJ guy who I was working with was going over there and helping him out and trying to get him through the mental hurdles that happen when you realize, shit, I'm going to struggle with my vision for the rest of my life, and that puts me at a bit of a disadvantage depending on how I look at things like that. Have you, since all of this, have you gone back and sort of talked to other people who are going through similar situations?
I have. I've been, well, in a weird way, I've been lucky to have somebody to lean on in the first place. So like that kid. So my mother is actually totally blind. And the weird thing is, it's not hereditary. Everyone wants to jump to the conclusion, oh, well, she had bad eyes and so do you. But it was just total fluke. Same thing in terms of the detached retina. So I had her to lean on. Her story is way cooler. You should talk to her instead. I got kicked in the head by a chubby kid. She got kicked in the head by a bull in a rodeo, which is way fucking more metal. Yeah. And she's like, and I made the 12 seconds too. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That's so much cooler than my story. Got chunky kid in grade 2. But no, to answer the original question, yeah, I've been trying to help other people. It's weird because people see me with my white cane when I'm out and about, but then I have glasses because I do have some workable vision. So they see the cane and then they think I should be totally blind if I have a cane, but that's not the case. So they a lot of people will. It sucks, but people will call me out for not being blind enough.
Really?
Hey, you don't deserve that cane. Like, you can see. I'll notice people will be standing there. and they'll go quiet and see if I step around the fire hydrant. Because yeah, I can see the bright friggin' yellow fire hydrant. But,
so people are watching you with your walking stick and kind of just waiting for you to fail, thinking that you might not be able to see them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and really the only thing that gets me is just, God help me trying to get into an Apple store with all the clear windows and everything. 'Cause where the hell is the door? And I'm just reaching out trying to find it, and I smack into that like a crow. It's ridiculous.
Before we get into all your travel and stuff, because I'm so interested in what that's like, as somebody who has vision issues. But just overall in life, do you find that people are pretty decent to you, or do you find that people maybe infantilize the issue, or what's the reaction just from average people around you each day?
I think on the whole, losing my vision in a weird way made me more hopeful in a strange way, not in like any spiritual sense. I'm not spiritual in any regard, but hopeful because people are, in my mind, inherently good. They do want to help, even if they do it in a what would be maybe a stupid way. If I'm standing there at the street corner, somebody will grab me on the arm to try to lead me across the street. And I mean, don't touch people you don't know. There's a really good hashtag going around in the UK right now that's called hashtag Just Ask Don't Grab. And it's true. It's like just ask, because like by grabbing me, that's weird. You don't, if you were sighted and you grab another sighted person, now you're just groping somebody. But I get the intention is good. So I can see where I maybe before I lost my vision, I would get pissed off and say like, oh, that's messed up. Don't grab people you don't know. But it's coming from a good place. So I kind of, in a way, try to take it upon myself to say like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but don't do that. Here's a better way. Like, I love it if people are like, hey, dude, the light's green, you can go. And that's awesome, because if the sunlight is down or like directly in my eyes or something, I can't see it.
Yeah. I
love getting the shout out, because that also says somebody recognizes the cane and they recognize something is up. I love that. But so I think for the most part, people are good. You do get your kind of weirdos who maybe just think that, oh, well, it's so amazing that you're out and about just, getting groceries. Let me help you fill your whole cart. It's like, well, are you going to pay for it too? Because otherwise I don't want you near me. But yeah. But on the other hand, I don't mind if people come up to me in the store. Hey, do you need a hand reading this or that or the other thing? And kids today, man, they're the best for it. Anyone under 20 seems to be super, I guess, empathetic. I was standing at McDonald's the other day, just waiting in line for a coffee, and some kid comes up and he's got even I can see how pristine his shoes, his freaking Yeezys or whatever.
Yeah.
And his big puffy coat. He's like, hey, bro, do you need me to read you the menu? You know what's up? I'm like, yeah, I've been going to the McDo for 35 years, man. I think I'm good, but I appreciate it. But millennials, man, they're and I guess I'm technically a millennial. They won't offer me a seat. They won't offer me help. They just stare at the ground and keep going. So I know I'm generalizing a whole.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, but just in a term, in a way, completely generalizing it. But you see a generational gap in the way you're treated.
Absolutely. There's old people, and then like in their 70s who, oh, my friend Alice is blind, and they just want to tell me about their old friend.
Do they do that thing where they ask you if you know Alice, assuming that all blind people must know each other? Or?
Well, as a Canadian, people do that to us anyways. It's like, oh, I met Bill from Vancouver, and one time when I was backpacking, I friggin' knew the guy. It's like, oh, did you know Jen from Richmond Hill? It's like, no, of course. Wait, Jen who? And yeah, it turns out I knew them. So
every once in a while it works out.
Yeah.
So let's go to like what you're doing now. I mean, how much more difficult is it for you to browse the web? We're chatting for this via Skype right now. How difficult is that process for you? Do you use software or something to help you out? What's that like?
Yeah, it's gotten a lot easier. I'll be honest. It's so right now I'm staring at my computer screen, and it's I've been using Macs for well, when I went to college, I got forced to buy a Mac because I was gone. I went for journalism, and at that time, that would have been 2006, I think, 2007, and you couldn't move in the world without a Mac. And then after I lost my vision, I realized I was trying to get back online, get my life in order after those 6 months of being blind and everything. I needed to reconnect with the world, and I found out that just built into the stupid thing had voiceover, so the speaking software. I could invert the colors, I could zoom the whole thing. So, and it's only gotten better since. So I've got my iPhone, and it's got, you just triple tap the home button, and it'll pull up a magnifier for me, so I can read things in the store. It's like, oh, is that what aisle am I in? And I can actually just hold my phone in front of me and look at things. So, I mean, I look really suspicious when I'm doing it because I'm holding my phone super close to my face. But other than that, it's pretty good. Mostly it's my phone. I don't really use screen readers because I just have enough vision that I can zoom in pretty close. But it drives my girlfriend insane to watch me use my computer because I'm like screwing around really fast on it, and the letters are maybe 2/3 of the screen. So I can read it, but any sighted person ironically can't because they're not used to seeing it. So you're able to get by and make the most of that thanks to some of the technological advances that are out there. But what about, because you're big into traveling? And, yes.
And you've got 3 points of contact is this YouTube thing that you had, and you had like a Facebook page and some Twitter stuff, and now you're seemingly, I think, moved on, and you're doing some stand-up, which is hilarious, by the way. But this thing was all about you traveling the world blind, and I thought to myself, I said, God damn, I mean, that seems difficult. It just seems like there's a lot of hurdles there. Is it tough, or is it something that you figured out the hacks and you knew how to make it an easier thing?
I think honestly, I want it to sound like, oh, it was emotionally and physically demanding, and it was just I found myself into it. Wasn't as hard as I thought it was gonna be when I first set out to do it, because I initially went backpacking solo in 2012 so this was after I lost my vision. I'd had my 3 surgeries. My vision was as stable as it is now, and it hasn't changed since. I left the country because I had at that point a failed marriage, and I thought, well, screw it. We sold our house, and my ex-wife probably did something reasonable with it, and I said, well, I'm gonna go drink with a bunch of people 5-6 years younger than me in Paris or something. Yeah. And I took back the early 20s that she took from me. So I figured off I go. And because everyone, when I lost my vision, my family, my friends, my wife, everyone was doing everything for me, and I was really dependent on everyone, and that kind of fed into my depression. And I mean, God love them all. They were super helpful, but it wasn't helping me progress forward. So I thought, why don't I'm not going to lie. I drank about half a bottle of Jack, and I woke up with a headache and a one-way ticket to London about three months down the line.
That's how all the best decisions are made anyhow.
I think so, yeah. I haven't really spoken with Jack in quite some time, but I don't know. Maybe I want to get back on the road again. Maybe I'll see what he's saying. But
so there was something to you going off on your own and gaining that independence that probably changed you pretty dramatically.
Saved my life, man. It absolutely turned me into who I am now. And I don't know. It's so stereotypical, I guess, to say, or cliched to say, oh, travel broadens your mind and it'll teach you about yourself. But it really kind of does. You can't do it and not learn something. You could learn you hate it. Yeah, I know some people who've went backpacking and swear up and down, oh, I'm never doing that again. That was the worst experience of my life. But for me, I just meeting the people, I forced myself out of my very small comfort zone at the time, and because I had to relearn how to do everything. I had to learn how to live a life where I couldn't drive anymore, and like I'm from a farm town where I can't even get to without needing somebody to drive me now. So I had to relearn so many things. Hell, I was an English major. I can't just pick up a book and read it anymore. So I had to learn how to adapt. And I mean, it's as simple as you either do or you don't. And traveling forced me to do it because I couldn't afford to come back right away. So
now, where did you start? Where did you fly to first?
At that point, I thought, all right, I'll take it on the easy mode. So I went to London. I knew a couple people in England. So I thought, all right, at worst, I'll go visit them. And then I ended up
isn't getting through the airports and stuff difficult? I mean, now you're probably, you're experienced at it, but that first time, I feel like there's a lot of things that could go wrong if your vision is gone.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So it was a bit of a fiasco at first because I was, I would just kind of, especially being alone. So solo travel is difficult on its own, and then when you remove vision from the equation, it's pretty out there. And so I learned to just not to be afraid to ask for help. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from everything. I used to be too proud, too cocky, and would never ask for help, but the travel forced it. So I landed in the airport. I had somebody basically in Toronto here to guide me through, get me on the plane, and then I was on my own. So landing in London, I just, you follow the crowd to the baggage claim. And then I knew what my backpack looked like and had a tag so I could see the giant, enormous blue backpack and grab that. And then I was pretty much on my own. So I start looking for people in maybe a high-vis vest. It's like, all right, if they're security or if they're airport employee or something, they can guide me at least. They can tell me where to go and that. So the hardest part was figuring out the London Underground.
Imagine.
That was a fiasco. I landed in.
And are you making mistakes throughout this process?
All the time, walking into glass doors. I got yelled at by security because I started walking back down the gangway, going back towards the plane. I mean, this is all post 9/11, so I'm lucky I got out unscathed. At least the airport security at Gatwick was very gentle with me. So they, you have to make mistakes. Failure is the best teacher,
Sure.
Not to steal a line directly from Yoda, but yeah, it is the best teacher because, and my philosophy is nothing's worth doing if it isn't at least a little bit scary. And because how else are you going to learn? If you keep doing things that are easy, then it's going to be boring. You're not going to learn anything new, and you're just going to keep the cycle going. So, figuring out the transit system. Yeah, I would sail right past my stops or get on the totally different line, and I end up in bloody East London, mate. Like just bizarre areas, and but this is how you learn. And you step out of the station. All right, there's a pub. I'll go talk to somebody in there, have a pint, and make some friends, and learn.
What do you think? Now that we're sort of in the process of getting somewhere, traveling and going to different locations, what is the thing that people are terrible at? What are we sucking at in terms of making things accessible for blind people who are traveling? Is it the idea that it's not easy enough, it's not audibly based enough when you're traveling in public transportation? Is it like, what are the things that people are screwing up when it comes to making the world a better place for those who have sight issues?
Well, I think the biggest issue is representation on the boards who are making the decisions to say, let's put the tactile strips on the street corner. So like the bumpy strips.
Yeah.
At a street corner. So here in Toronto we have them, and I don't know which blind person they consulted on putting these things in, but they've curved the street corners So I can walk up to the corner, and maybe I want to go east, or maybe I want to go north. The curve goes east and then north, and the tactile strip is connected all the way along the curve. So
Yeah.
if I were totally blind and I find it at maybe the 45-degree angle of this curve, I'm going to walk straight out into the intersection.
Great.
So, yeah, and I mean, it's simple geometry. I mean, I went to school for English, and I can figure this out. And it just was a bad move. But
No, I see what you're saying. It seems like people who aren't blind designing things for blind people is going to lead you into a million bad directions. But if you're right, if you had somebody on these boards, somebody who's making the decisions, who's experienced life as you have, they're not going to make that boneheaded decision. They're going to understand the problems with it before somebody who's not blind would.
Yeah, bang on. And that's it is getting better. I want to bitch and moan about it all day long, but the truth is it is getting better. It's slower and in some ways, but we're always moving forward. And I've been on a couple committees and a couple boards, but anything, chosen by committee takes forever. So
Sure.
you have to kind of plan things out for your kids rather than for yourself,
Now,
it seems.
You've been to a bunch of places, and I imagine at least a portion of those places were after your both eyes went and you're traveling around. Tell us about some of the places you went, and were there some cultures that you visited which were not quite as welcoming or helpful when it came to dealing with somebody who was blind?
I think culturally there. It depends. I know Austria, for example. I was in Vienna, and the accessibility on the street level was really good. They didn't curve their street corners, and they had bumps in the sidewalk, and they had good sight lines and audible signals. But would any of the people help me out? No, forget that. They'd rather jump in the river than help me out, because it's just. It seemed to me that was just he's probably fine. Let's leave him alone.
Yeah.
And same with parts of Germany was a little like that. But if I ever didn't matter where I was, if I really looked in trouble, people that's where I come around to thinking people are inherently good, because people would come out of the woodwork and try to help us out. On my last trip in 2016, I was with my buddy in Morocco, and the infrastructure is absolute gong show there, as far as there's holes in the sidewalks, and it's super loud, and cars will just hop up on the sidewalk to get around, some chickens in the street and stuff. So they, but then people would see me maybe coming up the street, and they, oh, my friend, here, let me help you. There's some danger up ahead. There's, this, that, and the other thing, and they would help me out. Maybe they want a couple bucks for their help, but hell, they helped me, So it's I think just generally I would find that reaction from the citizens of any country I went to, if I looked like I needed help. Portugal, Spain, they're super interested in oh, hey, what's going on? Do you need a hand? Because they know maybe the infrastructure isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some places are just, it must be what's taught to them in school as well, about empathy and disability and everything. I know in Ireland, people would come, oh, hey, there's some stairs coming up, and there's some bins laying down there. Do you need a hand getting around? And so I would, people would just run out of their shops to just come and tell me about the thing, and then talk about the weather, and then trying to get them to shut up is a whole different problem. But so I feel like I fit in there. So
as you're going around, you're touring the world, you're seeing all these amazing places. I say seeing all these amazing places, but but you're doing this something that I think a lot of people wouldn't have the bravery or the heart, or they wouldn't be able to do it, because they would shut down because of some issue they were facing with their vision. But As you're doing this and you're out there and you're tackling the issue head on and exploring the world and enjoying yourself, did you find there were people who would take advantage of your situation, who would try to steal from you or do something because they knew that you might be an easier target because of your vision?
I definitely felt I've never really felt unsafe in certain places, but I know I can only think of one situation where I was a full-on target, and I was in Barcelona, and I was walking through like the Las Ramblas area, and this was in 2012. And so it's all these little narrow streets and little bars and shops and stuff. And I'm walking around with a couple of my buddies that I met, a couple of Australian guys. And one of the tricks, one of the common scams is somebody will come up to you and they'll shove something in your hands. Like maybe it's a board, like a clipboard with something to sign, or in my case, it was a whole pizza in a box. And this guy comes up, hey, and just shoves a pizza in my hand. And then I know the scam then is, so when your hands are distracted, then somebody's behind you, like nicking your shit.
Yeah.
And so the guy was trying to hand me this pizza, and I've got my cane, so I just keep kind of pushing it back at him. And my Aussie buddies were in front of me, and so I just called up to them. I'm like, "Hey, fellas!" And they turn around, and then the Aussie wrath came down on them. They both grabbed this dude, and I was right. There was a guy behind me, and they just kind of shoved them off to the side and roughed them up a little bit, as far as I could tell. But then we just kind of got out of the area. So what I can say is definitely travel with a couple of Aussie rugby players. They'll keep you sorted.
That's always nice, right?
Yeah. But I did find actually a lot of what I found, a lot of the experience I had knowing that I was a target. I do not in any way purport to say I know the experience of solo women travelers, but I can definitely empathize where they're coming from, being a target for probably different reasons. But there's a lot of crossover that when I was meeting women who were backpacking solo, we would say, all right, yeah, like, stay out of the dark alleys on your own, travel in groups, keep your bag or wallet in front of you. And there's a lot of crossover between being a solo low vision backpacker and the experience of a lot of women who travel. And I think they're way more badass than I am, because that's just super cool.
How do you handle your money? I know the technology is changing this drastically and making things much more digitally focused, but how do you handle your money? How do you know you're not getting ripped off when somebody gives you change, or you're giving them the right amount of money?
I will stick around as long as I absolutely have to make sure. And I never really carry, even in 2012, I only carried a limited amount of cash, or just used my debit card or Visa or whatever, and made sure to keep to make sure I know who I'm buying stuff from. I'm never really wanting to go into a market and haggle for sunglasses or all the the garbage that you're getting from the next market or the next market. And I'm not really a souvenir type. So luckily, the type of people, unfortunately, who might be the scammy type, I just tend to avoid anyways. So, but I do keep a good solid watch on what I hand out. I'll make a big show of it, that I'll hold the 10 euro note up to my eyes, and just, I'm more blind than I need to be. And then I hand it to them, and then they give me my change back, and I make a show of counting it. So they know if they're screwing me over, that I'll know.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You're making it clear with your body language, like, hey, I'm not some sucker. I'm not just taking this stuff and throwing it in my pocket. I'm I'm double checking here.
Exactly. And nobody wants the international incident of robbing the blind Canadian guy. That makes great news, and it makes better news for me. I would get some actual views on my channel.
Well, you said that you, Dan, were married, and then you went off and you were single on this trip where you went alone for yourself, and I'm guessing on at least some subsequent trips. What's it like trying to find somebody new, dating somebody, meeting people, when you have to do it differently? I mean, let's just be real, evolutionary. Oh, yeah. Speaking in evolutionary terms, humans are attracted to people visually. You're looking at somebody who you see as healthy and you think you can like reproduce with. These are all the things that are driving factors to help us determine, whether we know we're doing it or not, a partner to be with. And when you take away the visual element, does it make dating so much harder, meeting people and all that?
It does. I really wish I could say, oh, no, I see people for who they are. I see their character and their personality. And no, I'm just as shallow as I ever was. And and I mean, other than now giving them the eye chart and be like, all right, can you read to the fourth line down? Because that's going to be important down the line. No, I really should do that. Actually, my girlfriend's vision is terrible. If we have kids, they're just going to be mole rats.
So what was it like meeting her and kind of going through the whole process? I mean, now you probably have a solid idea of what she looks like, but at the beginning, are you kind of forced to go more off of personality just because that's what you're interacting with more?
Yeah, it's well, we met online. We did the whole online thing, and which is really handy because then you can. I liked that you could read somebody's basically their life story and learn what they value. And it's like, oh, I like the Toronto Blue Jays and I love to have fun. Cool, skip. And I mean, the Jays are fine and I like to have fun, but be better than that, in your profile. But with her, she had substance and creativity to her profile. So I thought, all right, here's somebody who's intelligent, who is clearly funny. Well, I think she's funny, and with my phone, I can see pictures if I hold it close enough. So you get a pretty good idea. I mean, I am very easy to catfish, but that my hands don't lie.
Well, that's a whole other element.
The old joke was, "Ladies, please, I see with my hands," but people have no qualms slapping a blind guy for that one.
Yeah, I mean that is a whole other element of it. It's like now you get down to the time when you're going to get busy with this person, and you got to figure out your way, your dance through that situation too. But I guess throughout a lot of your adult life, you've been dealing with these visual impairment issues. So there's so much of this stuff where you're not newly blind. You figured out how to deal with this over time.
Yeah, exactly. It's trial and error, and apologies to the women who've been more error than trial, but it's you learn by doing, and people on the other hand, it's a two-way street. People are empathetic to the vision. I back, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago, I went out with this girl on 2 dates, and the second date, she's like, all right, so like, what's going on? Are you going to kiss me or what? And I'm like, that's when I realized I can't see the body language.
Yeah.
This was all new to me in terms of, and she's like, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay, well, shut up, incoming. And your boy got a kiss. Yeah. So that was pretty good. And then we proceeded to later on have the best breakup ever. We realized that we were too similar and both self-hating. So we thought, well, we see too much of each other, ourselves in each other. So we met at the pub and said, hey, don't think we should see each other anymore. Cool. You want to go to the bar or you want to stick around for a couple drinks? And so, yeah, we broke up and kept drinking for the rest of the night. It was a great night. Best breakup ever.
If only they all worked out that way.
Yeah, no kidding.
So now 3 points of contact, you started this up toward the beginning of you traveling around, and why did that kind of seemingly go to the wayside a little bit for you?
Well, it's hard to write a travel blog and film a travel channel if you're not traveling. So
yeah, that'll do it.
Gets expensive. Yeah, no, it actually started as a blog years ago when I lost my vision, when I was starting to when I was still essentially totally blind, and I was learning that voiceover on my computer there, and I was just writing my experience down, and it just was kind of therapy. It was really cathartic to just get it out of my head, because my wife was sick of hearing about it. So I thought, well, I'll just type it in a notepad and save it. And then so I ended up putting it up as blog posts. And then when we split, I thought, oh, I'm going traveling, because I'd loved doing that before. And that's when it became more of a travel blog. And then an Aussie fella I met, my buddy, he told me, he's like, mate, this is pretty cool. You should get somebody to film this shit and put it online. You'll print money. People liked it, but I did not print money. And then YouTube changed the algorithm, and then I made no money. So, but it's, I'm glad Google's saving the money that I would have otherwise had, because they need it.
Yeah, poor Google. I know this is the most trite question that you could ask somebody who's blind, but I'm going to ask anyways. Whenever somebody talks about somebody losing a sense, or having a sense, say in this case, vision that is degraded in a significant way, they always talk about your other senses being enhanced. And that, again, is almost like, sounds like an evolutionary thing. Sounds like there could be something to it. Your hearing seems to be sharper because you need it, because now you can't rely on your vision as much, and your brain can do amazing things under pressure. Have
Absolutely.
You found that to be something that, like, has your hearing gotten better? Have other things seemingly improved as your vision is faded?
Well, it's more that we pay attention to it more rather than it improving. So I guess it is improving in a way, but I don't have any. My hearing isn't necessarily any better than it was before I lost my vision. It's just I have to pay attention to it more. And if you ask my ex-wife, there's a difference between good hearing and good listening. So, and it's a personal choice. But I definitely am more sensitive to smells and to heat, for example. Like I use a gas stove, and I'll warn my girlfriend, like, oh, yeah, get away, the stove is hot, and I'll notice it long before she will, just because it's, like, I guess it is an evolutionary thing that kicks in, where it's, all right, well, that thing's broken, so let's compensate.
And
but
it poses
it's always there.
Yeah, it poses a danger to you, so you're keenly aware of this, and you're utilizing what you have to keep yourself safe, I would guess.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's kind of like how when I had all five senses all working together, then it kind of, they just spread the duty across each other. They spread the workload, and then so when one is removed, the others kind of step up their game, or, well, my brain just kind of says, all right, well, we're listening to the other four more now. Right. So yeah.
All right, so you did this whole travel thing, and then you decided, hey, you're obviously a funny guy. You said, I'm gonna try my hand at stand-up comedy. And what was the impetus for that, and how has being blind impacted that? Because I can imagine in some ways it might even be beneficial, right?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, nobody is confident enough in the crowd to heckle the disabled guy, and I'm just waiting for the day that somebody
loaded up.
Oh yeah, exactly. I'm just like the shells are in the gun. I'm ready to go, and nothing. Actually, I called out one table in a crowd because they had been heckling every comic coming up that night. And I'm like, all right, it's my night. Let's do it. And then I got up on stage, and they were dead silent. And so I'm like, what the hell, you ableist bastards? Who, you're not gonna like, screw you guys. And so I spent half my act just ad-libbing, yelling at these people, and they wouldn't say word one against me. So, so I am waiting for the day to get heckled and to probably bomb the heckling retorts and everything, because it's good to fail on stage, and you do that a lot. But but comedy has been incredible for me. It just, I wanted to figure out a way to talk about disability and do it in an interesting way and kind of destigmatize the whole thing because, people see me and, oh, poor blind guy, poor baby bird with a broken wing. And I don't want the coddling. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I, want to be able to talk to people, but rather than be, like Tony Robbins and like, hey, you can do anything. It's like, well, no, you can't. Nobody can do everything. I'm not a motivational speaker.
So like a realistic motivational speaker, maybe.
Exactly. So not everybody can be astronauts, and it's good that we're not. So it's comedy has been such an accepting, open community. I went to, I took classes at the Second City, a very famous comedy program. Cool. Tina Fey, John Candy, like tons of people, all went through there. So I thought when I walked in there, I thought, what the hell am I doing here? And it was just such a great experience. I had the best time. And, you realize that, yeah, okay, my vision sucks, but then maybe buddy next to me is a former magician who's on parole for drug charges or whatever, and he's cleaning up, and so he's saying, all right, I'm going to get my comedy act in order so I can, be a better person. And then there was the recently out former high school principal, and then there's the girl with every mental disorder and anxiety and everything in order. And these are all the people you get together at 2 p.m. on a Monday in downtown Toronto. And it's like, all right, yeah, we're all here. We're all broken in some very special way.
Well, that's where you get the funniest stuff, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I think the equation is comedy equals tragedy plus time.
Sure.
So, the other joke that they were telling us there was that comedy is for people who can't afford therapy, and it works. It's every time I'm on stage, and if I go up and I say word one and people laugh, it's just justification for saying the next joke, and it just makes me feel so good. And having people come up to me after shows, or I had a person come up to me on the street, hey, I saw your show a few weeks ago. You were great. And I thought, oh my God, that's incredible. So, I mean, it plays into my narcissism a little bit, but it's really satisfying. And to hear that people are learning about blindness and disability in a what I think is a pretty casual, fun way, with a couple swears thrown in here and there, I try to make disability accessible in a way that I can.
So this, I mean, it's really interesting to me, all this stuff that you've done over the years, and not to again talk down at all, but I mean, really the perseverance through all this stuff is really is to be applauded, I think. And you're coming at all of this, at least from the surface level, with what seems to be such a positive attitude, which I just absolutely I love, and I know people are going to connect with that. And so if people want to hear more from you, Dan, and maybe they want to see you doing your show, maybe they'll find more content from you online or follow along with you, where can they do that? What should they do?
Well, ironically, the blind guy has Instagram. And so Instagram and Twitter at Dan Barra-Berger. It's I guess, do you have a place you can chuck that? Because I can spell it out if you want.
Yeah, no, let's do both. Just tell them how to spell it. And I'm gonna post this on all my profiles as well.
Aces. Okay, yeah. So it's all lowercase. It's Dan Barra-Berger. It's DanBarraberger. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And it's and then 3 points of contact is my YouTube channel. It's when you search it up on YouTube, you'll find a lot of safety videos on how to climb a ladder, but eventually you'll see something with a logo that's in Braille. That's me. And so it is a little slow going right now, but I am putting more stuff up hopefully soon. And yeah, working on a website and stuff. But yeah, mostly Twitter and Instagram is the best way to find me, and 3 Points of Contact on Facebook as well. It's kind of silent on there. I don't really give Zuckerberg too much of my money if I can help it. So.
You're battling Facebook, you're battling Google, all the giants in your
taking on whoever I can.
So what are the goals moving forward for you?
I think I do want to get more in depth with the comedy. I do want to start producing some shows. I actually am a contributor to a video game and adult beverages show on YouTube called Game and Scotch.
Okay.
And we do some stuff on there, and so I'm going to be doing some videos about how a blind guy plays video games. The spoiler, I have to sit within about 11 inches of the TV, but I still manage it, and it's really embarrassing for anybody if I snipe them in Halo, because you just got killed by a blind guy. Well done, you.
So you still play video games, you still do all this stuff, you still do the comedy. In the comedy world, is there anybody that you know of that has been a stand-up comedian that's been blind?
There have been a few, and there was one fella, and I can't remember his name at the moment. Oh, it's terrible. I think his name was Greg, and I say was. Unfortunately, a few years ago, he did pass away.
Oh.
And there was a tour coming through last year that featured all comics with disabilities. I wasn't part of it, unfortunately, but they said, "Oh yeah, and our next comic is totally blind," and I thought, oh no, that's all my material. But he had a dog guide, so thank God for that dog, because all his jokes were about the stupid dog.
He leaned heavy on that, huh?
Yeah. I'm like, that's literally the one thing I have, man. Don't take this away.
Now, Dan, I'll wrap it up with this, because I've gone down this rabbit hole a little bit, and I find it truly interesting and a real heated debate at sometimes. There are people who are blind who suggest that if there was a magic surgery, if there was something that could be done to restore their vision, that they wouldn't even do it. That this would insinuate that they're less of a person because of their current predicament, and they wouldn't even do it. If you had the ability to fully restore your vision, do you think like that, or do you think it's part of who you are, or would you take that opportunity?
I don't think my disability it's something that I talk about, but it's not my that's not my identity. Like I don't identify as blind because I am blind. It's not something I have to choose to identify as. It's what I am, but it's not who I am. So if I could just, Thanos snap and like fix my vision, then I would, but I also don't have any, and there's no shame in disability. And unfortunately, that is a feeling a lot of people have, especially people with disabilities, because I used to be ashamed of it and thought, oh, I'm less of a person, and that was through all my depression. And there is no shame in it, but you have to let yourself wallow a little bit here and there, because you're not going to learn what you value if you don't. But would I fix it? Maybe after my comedy takes off, once I'm starting to make the big tours, get me on Just for Laughs and stuff, then sure, I could use the money right now. But
that would give you a fresh routine. If you wore out all the blind stuff and then you restored your vision, then you could go off that for a tour or two.
Exactly. The Dan Barra-Berger, remember when I was blind tour? Yeah.
Well, Dan, thank you so much. It's been really interesting talking to you. I appreciate the time. I'm going to put all your information up so everybody can check you out, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thanks very much, man. It's been great chatting with you.
All right, thank you so much for listening once again. Make sure you are subscribed to this show so you can get all future episodes, and I'm glad that everybody's enjoying this. I hope you'll stick with me on this journey. In the next several weeks, there are some really, really fun conversations that I truly hope you will enjoy. So subscribe, rate, and review the show if you enjoyed this conversation and appreciate the time spent in putting it together. If you want to support the things that I do or with the show, this show in particular. One of the best ways to do that, since there's no advertising as of yet, is to subscribe to Secret Shows and get involved in the uncensored shows over at GetSecretShows.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you real soon.
To listen or subscribe now, search for the News Junkie interviews on iHeartRadio or on the podcast app of your choice.
Seasons change. Spring training slides into the regular season. Summer cools into fall. Leaves change their color. Lives change their shape. Change is life's only constant. AAA Insurance is here to be your guide through life's journey. Protect what matters most. Make sure you have the right insurance for whatever season of life you're in. Talk to your local AAA insurance agent today. Visit AAA.com for details.